Being on the same page with your wife makes everything easier. You can hit goals faster, have more peace, and enjoy life more. Being on the opposite page is exhausting and frustrating and confusing. You can even get to the point where it seems easier to do it on my own and division forms in a marriage. Hello, my friend. My name is Zach. And when I was first in business, newly married, my wife and I were not on the same page at all. And now, I think we are. Let's go back there for a second, though. I own a pizza restaurant. And at the time, I actually owned two. I was building Zach's Pizza empire. And she just wanted me home for dinner. These two things did not connect at all. She wanted my help at home with a young family, and I was doing what it took to sacrifice for my family. We can get in these situations all the time. Two good goals. She was worried about the family unit now. I was building for what I thought was a future for my family. So every night I'd get off work, and it would be an argument. Both of us not feeling like the other one was acknowledging each other and what they wanted. Now, thankfully, that's not the case. It's not that we never argue, but we're very clear and we are on the same page. And so I've been married 20 years and in business for 20 years. You don't want it to take 20 years, my friend. That's a lot of anguish to get there. Let's talk about what you and I should do to get on the same page with our spouse. The first thing I just want you to know is don't try to hit a home run in the first conversation. Just go for a base hit. What do I mean by this is sometimes we can try to have this one single conversation that gets us on the same page. That's once. It's kind of like the guy that said, I told you I loved you on our wedding day, and if it ever changes, I'll tell you again. That is not, don't do that. That's bad advice. Tell them you love them often. It's the same thing with being on the same page. Being on the same page is several conversations. And if you feel the pressure to go from opposite ends of the spectrum to the same page in one conversation, you're going to mess it up. It's not going to go well. That is way too much pressure on one single act. It's kind of like as a Christian, I've seen people try to convert someone to Christianity in a single conversation from hi to follow Jesus instead of building rapport, building relationships. So in this video, I'm going to talk about some foundational elements that will help you to get on the same page. And you're going to have to do it more than once. I was doing this just last night, not because we weren't on the same page, but I wanted to keep us on the same page. Because as humans, we drift. All right, the next thing is to listen more than talk. If you're feeling this pressure where there's a division starting to form, you might start to really talk about it a lot. Really talk about where you want them to join you, where you want them to go. It'd be similar to when I was first starting out and I'd be like, come on, come with me. We are building this pizza empire. Our life is going to be great. It's going to be awesome. Would you just come with me? Come with me. And she's going, I have a kid with a dirty diaper and another one that's been crying all day. I don't care about your empire. Right? The same thing can happen. We need to start with listening. And it's not just with our wife. It's also with God. Oftentimes what happens is we have these goals and dreams and vision, and just like me, I can see 10, 15, 20 years down, and I'm like, it is beautiful. But maybe God is calling us to something different. We don't know sometimes because we're so busy telling Him our hopes and dreams, telling our wives our hopes and dreams, and we're really not listening. Maybe God wants your dreams to shift a little bit. Maybe your wife is pointing to a blind spot. And if you're not listening more than talking, you're not going to see it. Honestly, in my story, and this doesn't have to be true for you, but when I was building my pizza empire, what was strong in that? Me. Honestly, at the time, it wasn't that I was doing anything wrong, but the heart motive wasn't correct. It wasn't God's dream. It was Zach's. And I was obsessed with it. So listen more than talk. Okay, so while you're listening more than talking, I want you to be curious. See, when I say listen more than talk, I'm not saying just sit there with a blank stare on your face. If you're an internal processor, you're going to listen more than talk, but you do need to say something. My wife is actually an internal processor, and I have to remind her of something. So if this is you, pro tip, we cannot hear what you're thinking. You got to verbalize it. And when you're listening, you do have to be curious in your questions. So how it would have looked if I was listening more than talking and being curious when my wife was getting elevated, when I was getting home late and not being there for dinner, I would have humbly asked the questions of what was going on inside of her, what her dreams and visions was for me and her and our family, what she was excited about. See, it's in curiosity where we really can discover our spouse's dreams. See, there's different levels to it, right? So like when I talk about my pizza empire, for example, apparently I'm saying pizza empire over and over in this video, but what was behind that? I don't really care about pizza. I mean, I do love pizza. I love it a lot. But the pizza empire really didn't matter to me. It was the things behind it. I was envisioning freedom. I was envisioning more time with my family. I was envisioning the ability to give financially into the kingdom of God and into different causes that we cared about. That's what was really driving me under the surface. But we really didn't get to those conversations because there was no curiosity. It was defensiveness. And you and I can get into those situations as well. And here's a word of caution for you. When you're getting curious about the dreams of your wife, you're going to want to watch for this little thing called anxiety. Because if you're like me, here's what can happen. Your wife is sharing her hopes and dreams, good things. And then you might get a little anxious because now it's up to you to accomplish it, which is not true, by the way. But that's what anxiety would say. Or anxiety might go, she's unhappy. She's unhappy, and she's unhappy with you. Those are some of the things that make me anxious. I want everyone to like me. I'm after approval. And when a vision and a dream is spoken that is not our current reality by my wife, for whatever reason, that triggers my anxiousness so high. If you were to share your hopes and dreams with you, man, I'd love to hear them. Because it's not on me. But when Rachel, my wife, says her hopes and dreams, I start worrying that I'm not enough. Or that I failed as a husband. Because I'm not giving her everything she wants. And I need to notice that I'm anxious, and so do you. I need you to name as concretely as possible. This helps reduce the anxiety. It won't get rid of it. But to know what makes you anxious, and when you start getting there, to name it as concretely as possible, you can rise above it and still be curious and listening and dig. Not in a judgmental way, but in true curiosity. See, I know that when Rachel shares her hopes and dreams, that I will take over responsibility for it, and worry will kind of rise up in me. So I can prepare in advance. You can prepare in advance for these conversations as well. And it'll really help you to listen, because if you truly listen, you'll uncover some things that'll help you get on the same page. While you're listening, I want you to do something. I want you to stay in wow and not how. And that is very hard. As men, we are naturally fixers, and we want to come up with solutions. So when she's sharing her hopes and dreams, if they're far out of reach, you might start just immediately going into, well, how are we going to do that? What's going on? And then that comes out in your curious questions. How do you think we're going to accomplish that? And it turns from curious, as you can tell with my tone of voice, to more judgment. You're shutting down the conversation. And there's nothing more wounding than someone processing a dream and immediately someone stepping into, well, how is that going to happen? Stay out of the how. The how is for another conversation. And stay in the wow. Because what someone's doing when they share their hopes and dreams for their life is they're revealing their heart. You, in that moment, are in sacred ground. You're in the dream space of someone's life. It's when your wife is revealing herself to you. And it needs to be treated as sacred ground. So stay in the wow. Even if you don't think that it can happen, even if it's so far-fetched, you're like, how is that ever going to happen? What you need to remember is that it is giving you clues into her heart. And when you're curiously looking at it and asking questions and listening, it's going to connect you. One thing I just wanted to point out is notice what we've done here. You're not talking about your page at all. You're looking at their page. Because naturally we see ours. Naturally, I got the list of my pizza empire. I can see it. But her page, it's not mine, so I tend to devalue it. And it's a sad truth. I think we subconsciously do that. And so remember, this conversation, you're going through her page at first. And in it, here's what I want from you. I want you to listen to understand. You're going to tend to listen to argue or listen to interrupt. You can even interrupt her dreams because she starts saying something you get excited about, and then you cut her off and you start dreaming, right? Because it hits close to yours. Verbal processor here, and I do that all the time. And it's something to really guard against. Or you might listen to interrupt, and this is why you're staying out of how. You might interrupt and tell them that it's not possible, and you're going to crush their spirit. And that is no good, and that does not help you get on the same page. But you listen to understand. If you're argumentative like I am, you're just spirited. You're spirited, you're not argumentative. You're going to have to remember something. Listening to understand does not mean listening to agree. See, in this process, while you're being curious and you're listening to her heart and you're totally taking it in, you are listening to understand her heart. There might be things that she communicates about dreams that you have no interest in. That's okay. Remember, you're understanding, you're not agreeing. Marriage is a give and take, and both is required. This, you're just hearing her heart. All right, the next step, you're going to talk about what you desire. Where does it complement what she said? I would start there because it's the easiest ones. Right? You're going to have some hopes and dreams in your life that you can very much connect. So in that moment where I'm coming home late from work, one of my heart attributes for building up a business was to have more time with my family. One of my wife's heart attributes was for me to be there with the family. We both desired time. She wanted it today. I wanted it years from now. There was compromise to be had, but we needed to stop at that complement point and talk about that for a while. Dream about that. Dream about what it would look like to have time freedom together. And you can do the same thing. Remember, stay out of that how, but just talk about the areas of your dream that you share together. That'll start to seam some of the page together. And then dream as well with some of the things that you have that are maybe a little different. And again, be careful here. As you start to share differences, her anxiety might go up and she might put down the dream a little bit. Just know that that might be a part of the process. This is not a smooth transition, but it can be with a little humility. With just one of your help, humility can happen. And if you need just some tips, for example, like I'm a dreamer naturally, like I could spend an hour long talking to you about the dreams I have for my life. Those might be a challenge for you. Here's some tips. You can get into a different environment that inspires you, that you feel God's presence in. For me, that's nature. And so going for a walk in nature and just talking with God and praying to Him about dreams for your life. Getting in a new environment helps. You can read a book or find a friend that dreams naturally and can ask you questions, or even a coach. or a counselor. These are areas where you can jumpstart that dreaming process and experiment. And again, you're looking for some of the sameness, not total sameness. See, too often in marriage or in other relationships, we struggle to accept differences, but they're allowed. Like, sometimes what we can do is we can love well with the differences. I'll give you an example. I would love a farm, 100-acre farm. That would be awesome to me. That would make my heart happy. And guess what? The house on it, I don't care. It could be a trailer. It's not of high value for me. My wife, on the other hand, very much values the house. She does not care about 100 acres. She does not care about farming. That's not something that excites her. There's parts of it she likes, but the house is of higher value for her. So right now, we bought this house that was compromised. It's on 7 acres, not my 100. And it's in a bigger house than what I would have got, but she wanted it. See, when we share our differences with our spouse, it gives them a chance to love us well, where they can meet some of the dreams that they don't necessarily have. And it gives us the opportunity to love them well. If you think that being on the same page means she should go in every direction you want, that is not the same page. That is your page. And vice versa. If it's that your wife expects everything to be on her page, that's not appropriate either. Marriage is two becoming one. It is a shared page. Maybe it needs to be a really big page for lots of different rooms. Maybe the dreams need to be so big that none of you have to compromise anything. No, that's not reality. Reality is give and take. And some of my favorite dreams that have been accomplished weren't mine. They were hers. And it made my husband's heart happy. Because part of leading well is sacrificing. In fact, my friend, men have a very high standard in the Bible. And it's to be what Jesus was to the church. And he gave his life up for. This can look a little different to us. We're not fully God and fully man. Like, we are fully man. And so I'm not saying don't say any of your vision, but I am saying that part of your duty as a husband is to give up some things you want for her, because you love her. See, in this process, it's really important for you to understand that there's 3 different parts of the same page. And I can't give you these answers for you, but it is good to know that there's 3 parts, and there's stuff that you're just going to give up. Dreams that you have that you're just going to say, hey, I'm going to set that aside for the marriage. There's others that you're going to fight for. And I don't mean like fist fight for or things like that or get in a super big argument, but there is going to be this wrestling between you that you're trying to figure out. See, wrestling's not a bad thing. When you're having discussions and, hey, we're not quite on the same page, when it's done in grace, it can be really healthy for a marriage, because this iron sharpening iron, you're wrestling over, what is it? Where is the line? And then there's going to be some things that are worth dying for. And what I mean by this is non-negotiable. Here's one from my life. We will follow Jesus. The end. I am following Jesus. If the dreams do not include that to me is worth dying for. Now, obviously, the Bible tells us to be equally yoked, and hopefully that is going on in your marriage where both of you are dying for that together. But these are just really worthy. Just really wrestle when you're looking at being on the same page. Is this something just to lay down? Is this something that's wrestling over, or is this a die for thing? See, to get on the same page, in the end, it's rowing in the same direction. It's not so much you're on the same page today. It's 5 years from now, you're looking out there together and you're marching in that same direction. And that's what allows you to get on the same page. It's as you're moving together. It helps a lot when you're moving together, because sometimes in that give and take, you can go, hey, we're going to accomplish your dream now. and then mine, and then yours, and then ours. And there's this give and take when it's in movement. Here's a bonus tip. When you're having these conversations, make it special. This isn't something that needs to be a horrible conversation where you're arguing. Actually, this should be a fun, exciting conversation because you're dreaming and building a life together. Go to a nice restaurant. Dress up. Make it something fun. Don't say, hey, we need to talk. Anytime someone says we need to talk, all my alarms go off. We're going to be having, this is going to be tense. Or what did I do wrong? Or all the other things. Don't do this, we need to talk. Say, hey, I want to dream together. Let's go on a dream date together. And go to a nicer place than you normally do to have these conversations well. I hope this helped you to get on the same page. An important part of this process is listening well. And this is a skill. And I think this video right here will really help you to listen to your wife well. Have a great day, and God bless you in your journey.